5.
Curry hits a three.
4.
Just for the try. Deep left field.
3.
Patrick hit by Watt. Sack number 10.
2.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
1.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Trevor.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of BSS Sports. My name is Steve Schill with the ever lovely guy known as Trevor Struthers, coming all the way from Kingston over the phone lines because, you know, technology is fantastic. Now, Trev, I'm assuming you watched every single NFL playoff game this weekend. Am I correct on that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier now that it's all in one day, back-to-back. It's squeezed together. And now, I mean, we have a 2-week build-up to one game. So it's always exciting when we get down to the conference championships and beyond.
You got her. Now, if you have not heard, the Patriots won. Shame. 24-20 against the Jacksonville Jaguars with the comeback. And then the Vikings were unable to defeat the Eagles, losing 38-7. Now, one of the weird things with this is if you've been watching the NFL playoffs so far, you'll see, you know what? Hey, there has been a lot of comebacks. And when the Falcons were facing the Rams, they were the only other team that were not down, tied, or leading throughout the whole game. Every other game we've had, apart from the Eagles versus Vikings and then the Falcons versus the Ram, team that won it was down, which I found kind of weird. But with the Patriots, you kind of expect them to come back, don't you?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was just a year ago with the game against the Falcons in the Super Bowl, right, where they pull off that miraculous comeback. And then, I mean, yeah, you just can never – I mean, we were talking about, you know, Tom Brady with the hand pretty much all week leading into this football game. And I mean, you just can't rule out Tom Brady no matter who he's with out there. And it seemed like that offensive line at times was cracking with that Jaguars defense after Tom Brady. But, I mean, he still found a way to get the job done because he's Tom Brady. And, I mean, you do wonder what's going to happen once this man retires because, I mean, definitely so far this year, you know, he is that best quarterback in the playoffs. He's the biggest name, especially now that we're down to Nick Foles and Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady he just continues to deliver, and it's almost shocking that at this age, you know, even banged up, he's going out there and he's still getting the job done against a premier defense.
Now, the thing that I find kind of not weird with Tom Brady, but not changing sports, but that's what we're doing here for a second. People look at LeBron James and they're like, okay, you know what? He's in his prime and, you know, he's been able to kind of carry his teams pretty far. And then there's always this talk, especially about this year, is he going to be able to get it done again? And I mean, with NBA, technically there's only like 5 people on the court for your team that you have to carry. And with the Patriots side of things, the guy's working with another 10 people, and he's able to consistently win over and over and over and over again. Is Tom Brady hypothetically the best athlete that we have in any league that's a major sport right now that we're able to watch in his prime? Kind of like the Michael Jordan.
Well, if you factor age into this, I mean, that's the thing. Like, is this guy still in his prime? He's like 40 years old, right? So, I mean, I think if you factor age into it, he is by far the best athlete at that level. Basketball, football, not a terrible comparison when you're comparing quarterbacks because, I mean, obviously, you know, star player on an NBA team like LeBron, even though he's not a point guard, ball's always going through his hands. Same thing, right? With when you're the quarterback of that offense, the ball's always going through your hands and where it ends up, and you're responsible for the points you put on the board. So, I mean, it's not a terrible comparison by any means. And, yeah, Tom Brady, I mean, if you factor his age into everything and the fact that he's not getting any younger, he's still delivering. And, I mean, no doubt the Patriots are going in 2 weeks from now the favorites to win the Super Bowl.
Now, the Eagles ended up winning, dilly-dilly, as they say, 38-7. I mean, the game was kind of one of those blowouts that, like, you were watching the first half and you were like, if the Vikings come back from this, then it's going to be pretty insane, because they did previously. But with that being said, the videos and everything that has been going around Instagram, Facebook, and everything of the insane Eagle fans, people don't really take it into account that, you know, it's kind of given with it being a sport, but at the same token, it's all about like the respect and this and that. I mean, there's the videos of people riding dune buggies up across the entire staircase by the stadium, people jumping on poles and all this kind of destruction happening. And I mean, is this a maturity thing? Is this hype? Is this alcohol? What exactly is this?
It's hard to say. I mean, Philadelphia is no doubt one of the most passionate sports towns in the United States, probably in the world. I mean, if you just factor that, I mean, getting behind the Eagles, 76ers, Flyers, the way they do, it's incredible. And now that the Eagles are now in the Super Bowl, I mean, they're allowed to kind of go nuts a little bit, celebrate. There's no doubt about that. But, I mean, being an athlete in Philadelphia, I can imagine, obviously, it's one of those places where when you're winning, it's fantastic. Nick Foles will never have to pay for another Philly cheesesteak again. And but when you're losing and when things aren't going so well, like how it has been the case for the 76ers over the last few years, it becomes a hard place to play because all the fans are wanting to and expecting you to perform, and you're performing below their expectation level. So, yeah, it's kind of like it's good when it's going well. It's horrible when it's not, I would imagine. But, I mean, it's like that with any sports town that's passionate. That's the big thing here with the Super Bowl. You're getting two really passionate places in the United States between Boston and Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, somebody's going to end up disappointed. But I think looking back, even if you're the Patriots and you're losing the Super Bowl, you can't consider losing the Super Bowl a bad season. So I think positives, no doubt, coming out of both those cities with their football teams this year.
Now, one thing that I find kind of weird is, can we look at the culture of it? Because, I mean, for football games, you do the tailgating before, and there's really not a whole lot of other, sporting events like that. And is it acceptable because it's football? To an extent it's acceptable. But we don't really see that with basketball. We've seen that with hockey before, but not to the same extent. Tennis, that never happens. Soccer, that's a whole nother ballpark right there. That happens all the time. But it's about the culture of football and how we're kind of raised on it, that it's supposed to be a party and it's supposed to be all this chaos all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, no doubt alcohol has a lot to do with that too, right? I mean, when you that's a part of party atmosphere is drinking and just letting, focusing on enjoying yourself and stuff like that. And then sometimes, obviously, people take it too far and stuff like that. But I mean, tailgating for the most part seems pretty fun. I mean, I haven't actually, it'd be cool to go down to an NFL game and get to experience that, especially if you go down to Buffalo and you got people going through tables. I think I can't remember which fan base it was, but one of them put somebody through a flaming table, which I think was a little, too far. But I mean, obviously, you're all willing when you're doing those, but it's a part of the party atmosphere, right? So I think it's all good-hearted fun. But I mean, I also heard about some Viking fans as well last night having to leave at halftime because they feared for their safety because things were getting so wild. And so Philadelphia is one of those places. I mean, I put it in there with Boston and New York. It's those really passionate sports places where people, when they get drinking, whether it be a really good thing or a really bad thing, can kind of lose their minds a little bit and take it to a next level. But I mean, you would love it if sports fans were all, content people. But, you get people feeling emotional, whether really happy or really sad, and you get alcohol in there. Things, sometimes can get messy.
Oh, I definitely noticed that when I seen the Raptors play down in the Boston Celtics TD Garden. That was I got chirped fairly hard, and I was a young little lad. But anyway, now looking towards the big game, the Super Bowl. It's good the Patriots are in the Super Bowl. And I don't think that I really wanted to say that, but from the standpoint of everybody, in quotations, everybody wanting to watch them lose is definitely something that's out there. And then, of course, you have the hardcore Patriots fans, and everybody's saying right off the bat the Patriots are favorites for obvious reasons. But do you think that the Philadelphia Eagles could take down the Giants that are the New England Patriots?
No, honestly, I didn't think the Eagles would get past the Vikings. And I mean, how did that turn out? So I'm done underestimating the Eagles. I mean, obviously, the Eagles have a very good football team, same record as the Patriots this season, and obviously haven't lost yet in the playoffs, just like the Patriots, right? So identical records coming into this matchup on the season as a whole. It's just, losing Carson Wentz, how big is that? I mean, there was a time, I think, too, when Zach Ertz was banged up, and that's a big part of their offense. But, I mean, Nick Foles has proven that he can find a way to get the job done, and they did it handedly last night against basically the number one defense in the NFL. Like if you look at defense as a whole, when it comes to fewest yards allowed per game, Minnesota has the best defense in the NFL. It's not Jacksonville, and the Eagles were able to torch that defense last night.
It'll be an interesting game nonetheless. The commercials are usually pretty good unless, you have certain cable subscriptions. And then they might not be as great, but nonetheless, Super Bowl just a few weeks away. Going to see the Patriots versus the Eagles. And if you have never watched a football game before, well, then you have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. And here's a fantastic opportunity for you to start. Now, a game that you might have seen is a Belleville Senators game down here at the good old TD Garden. Eric Berndorfer and Chris Domenico getting called up for the Senators. Now, I mean, you don't really look a whole lot at plus-minus stats for hockey players because, sometimes it goes really well, sometimes it goes pretty bad. But Eric Berndorfer, minus 12, not the greatest. Again, we've had some goalie issues with Belleville and other defensive depth, etc. And speaking of depth, this is going to be great for the Ottawa Senators because I do think that Eric Berndorfer is a pretty good defenseman. But holy geez, we're going to have a problem, especially coming up against the Manitoba Moose, who scorched us for 8 goals last time. Again, that's on Wednesday night, so he might be able to come back before then. But Trev, what do you think of the call-ups?
Yeah, I mean, this is already a Belleville Senators team that basically just within the last week found out they're dealing without Thomas Chabot basically until the end of the NHL regular season now. That's basically been confirmed by the Senators, the Ottawa Senators, that he's not going anywhere. And from their perspective, it's a smart move. Thomas Chabot's a phenomenal defenseman and basically should be an NHLer from here on out. But, losing a guy like Eric Berndorfer, you mentioned the plus-minus. It's a bit of a flawed stat, right? I mean, I guess it's more suitable for a defenseman. But, just because, you're on the ice for a goal against doesn't mean you made the mistake that led to the goal, right? So a lot of that, I think the minus 12 has to do as well with, guys getting called up on that back end. He's logging a lot of ice time out there, right? So, and he's got a big role on the Belleville Senators squad. Now that he's not even there, it'll be interesting to see exactly what the lineup looks like when they have to hit the ice on Wednesday.
Now, if we're talking about playoff picture, it doesn't really look like the Senators are going to be there. You never know. The season could change. But right now, we're sitting at 6th in just our divisional game. Toronto Marlies and Rochester Americans leading that. Marlies with 61 points, Belleville Senators with 39. But, I mean, we're halfway through the season, roughly, and I have to say the team is a weird team. Some nights it's fantastic. Other nights it's really not. We've faced teams that have crushed us, and then we've beaten them, and then it's been kind of the complete opposite. And I don't really know what to put it on, saying, the coach, this or that. But, I mean, I think the Ottawa Senators call-ups have been the biggest hit to this team. And I understand that the Senators are here for the fact of providing for the Senators of Ottawa, but at the same token, it's like, you want to get these guys to kind of evolve, grow as players and whatnot, and the AHL is a place to do that. Throwing them up in Ottawa with all the fiasco, the news, this and that, saying all this negativity, is this positive to bring them up, or is it negative, or is it kind of nowhere in between?
That was kind of the nice thing about not having to be attached to an AHL team, and follow them as closely as now we do in Belleville. But, if you didn't know it before, this is what it's like being an AHL team in Ottawa. And there's no doubt I've had to make a lot of call-ups. They've had injuries. They've been underperforming all year. They're trying to get some young guys a chance now. The All-Star, Gabriel Gagne, could get a shot in the NHL before the season's out. That's something they said they'd like to do. So, this is being an AHL team, right? And this is going to be difficult, especially when the NHL team is struggling to the amount that they are. They're trying to change things up, get some new people in there, and really there's not much you can do about it. And, no doubt that's the biggest hit to Belleville this season is the call-ups because, even as a coaching staff, night to night, you don't know exactly who's going to be in your lineup. You could have a game Friday night and play well, but you could lose. Chalapik was pulled out of a game just recently as well, so he couldn't get hurt because they wanted to call him up and have him in Ottawa. So, that's kind of what you're dealing with when you're an AHL team. And, that's the thing, right? Like when somebody gets called up to the NHL, you're not losing your best, or you're not losing your worst player. You're losing your best player. So it's something that's tough to recover from.
Now, if you're looking for plans for Wednesday night, the Flemmy Knights are coming down to take on your Loyalist Lancers volleyball teams. Women's game is at 6 p.m. with men at 8. And the teams are teaming up, if you will, with Bell Let's Talk to end the stigma around mental health. So make sure to bring out your noisemakers. And the women's team is ranked in the top 10 of the OCAA rankings and have cracked the CCAA top 15 rankings, which is all across Canada. That's it for this edition of BSS Sports. Make sure to like us on Twitter and follow us on Facebook. And that's totally the wrong thing. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check out all of our stuff archiving on YouTube at BSS Sports. For Trevor, Struthers, and myself, Stephen Schill, we'll catch you next Monday.